It always starts the same. A knock. 3 times. Calm, deliberate, unhurried. Not a question. A declaration. And for Emma Cole, living alone in a quiet cabin deep in the woods, that knock would shatter the line between reality and nightmare. She wasn't the only one. Hundreds heard it. Some answered. Most were never seen again. But Emma opened the door once, long ago, and forgot, until he came back to collect what she owed. This time, she'll remember everything. But by then, it may already be too late. Before we dive deeper into this heartbreaking mystery, take a moment to support stories that matter. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and follow Legacy Ignited for more true stories that deserve to be heard. Because the more people who see this, the closer we get to the truth. It began so simply that most people would have dismissed it. A sound. 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate, impossibly calm. The kind of knocking that wasn't a request, it was a statement. The clock in Emma Cole's kitchen had just ticked to 7:44 p.m. on a windless Wednesday evening. Her cabin, isolated at the end of a long gravel drive deep in the woods, sat in silence, but for the occasional rustling of trees and the low hum of her refrigerator. No cars had passed by. The motion sensor light hadn't triggered. Her dog Bowie, usually curled contentedly on the rug by the hearth, lifted his head and let out a guttural growl, low and steady, a sound Emma hadn't heard since the night a bear got too close to the back porch. Her hand froze over the mug of tea she was lifting. She turned her head slightly toward the front of the house, listening. The knock came again. Same rhythm, same space between each tap. Not rushed, not uncertain. Whoever it was, they weren't in a hurry. Emma crossed the creaky floorboards with careful steps, her eyes flicking toward the front window. She expected to see headlights, or at least footprints. But nothing had changed. No lights, no sounds, no shift in the forest. Just quiet. Her fingers curled over the doorknob, and she paused. Something in her bones recoiled, not from fear, but from something worse. Recognition. She leaned toward the peephole. Empty. Still, she'd heard it. There was no mistaking it. She cracked the door open, just enough to let the cold air slip in and burn her skin. And there he stood. Tall. Pale. Impossibly still. A man in his mid-30s, maybe. Wearing a pressed gray coat, dark pants, hands at his sides. He wasn't disheveled. Not dirty or bleeding or wild-eyed. No panic. He looked curated. Like someone had studied humans and assembled one piece by piece, trying to get it right. His face was blank. Not vacant, just too smooth. As if he'd shaved every emotion off of it. His voice came quietly, flat like radio static. I need to come inside. Just for 6 minutes. He didn't say please. Didn't smile. Just delivered the line like a script he didn't understand. Emma blinked at him, unsure if she should respond or just shut the door. Do I know you? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. He didn't blink. Didn't even pause. You know me, he replied. The words landed like a rock dropped into deep water. Somewhere inside her, a string pulled tight. A flicker of memory, not a face, not a name, just a feeling of déjà vu. Her pulse quickened. She started to close the door. Something in her gut said no. The man didn't resist. He didn't reach forward or protest. Instead, he slowly slid his hand into his coat and pulled out a small, black object, square, smooth, not a phone, not a remote, not anything she recognized. He held it out like a gift. It's already begun, he said. Then he turned and walked away. No goodbye. No explanation. Just turned and stepped into the shadows of the tree line, vanishing without sound. Emma slammed the door and locked every bolt, then stood there, breathing heavily. Her fingers dialed the police almost on instinct. The dispatcher was kind but skeptical. By the time officers arrived 30 minutes later, there was nothing to find. No footprints. No man. No device. But Emma wasn't the only one. That same night, across the country, hundreds of people reported the exact same thing. A knock. A man. A request for 6 minutes. Some opened the door. Some didn't. Those who let him in, if the internet could be believed, disappeared. No one heard from them again. No phones. No online activity. Some were reported missing by morning. Others never were because they lived alone and no one noticed. The next morning, Emma barely touched her coffee. She sat curled in her robe with her laptop on her knees, skimming page after page of message boards, forums, news clippings. At first it was just Reddit. Threads titled things like, "The knock came at 7:44, and has anyone else seen the pale man?" The most upvoted thread hit her like a punch. "He knocked. I let him in. Please read." The user's name was at Shane Left. The post was panicked, but strangely coherent. Shane described the same knock, same request, same man. He lived in a Denver apartment. Said he opened the door because he was expecting food delivery. The post ended mid-sentence. Just cut off. No edits. No follow-up. Users tried to contact him. Nothing. A local news blip confirmed it the next day. Shane had vanished. Apartment door unlocked. No struggle. No evidence anyone entered or exited. Just gone. The other stories flooded in like a virus. A woman in Maine said her daughter opened the door. She never saw her again. A couple in Texas, friends claimed, had been watching TV when they answered a knock together. Both disappeared. A college student in Oregon. A warehouse worker in Kansas. None of them connected. None of them ever found. Police tried to pass it off as mass hysteria. A social media hoax. But Emma couldn't unhear the way the man had said it. "You know me." The words had etched themselves into her mind, repeating with the rhythm of her own heartbeat. That's when she remembered the psychology study from years ago, back in her undergrad days. They'd shown the participants a slideshow of faces, neutral, averaged out, computer-blended images. One of them had been custom-generated by merging features of close family members to trigger subconscious recognition. When she saw that face last night, it had felt the same. Not known, not remembered. Felt familiar in a way the brain can't explain. That afternoon, something else happened. Her neighbor, Mr. Landers, a retired mechanic who barely left his house, was reported missing. A friend found his door ajar, TV still running, food on the stove, clock on the wall stuck at 7:50 p.m. No blood, no mess, just a silence that didn't sit right. Emma hadn't noticed anything strange until Bowie started barking again. This time, not a growl, but a sharp, aggressive alarm. She rushed to the front door, heart pounding, but stopped short. No footsteps, no car, just a cold stillness creeping across the floor. Then the knock came again. 3. Slow, steady. She didn't open it. She didn't even move. This time, she simply listened, every muscle in her body clenched. And then, from the other side of the door, a whisper, so faint she almost doubted she heard it. "Emma, you know me." Her name. She hadn't said it last time. She hadn't spoken it out loud. Her name wasn't on the mailbox. Whoever stood out there knew it. The porch light flickered once. She caught a glimpse of the silhouette through the frosted glass, tall, upright, head slightly tilted as if listening. The shape didn't move. It didn't knock again. It just stood there, watching, or waiting. She reached for her phone and dialed 911, but the moment the line rang, it died. No service. The screen flashed red, then black. 0 bars. Her Wi-Fi router blinked, then went dark. Lights across the house dimmed and died, like something sucked the energy straight from the air. In the hallway mirror, she caught sight of herself, eyes wide, chest heaving. But behind her, standing impossibly still in the reflection, was him. Not in the room. Not behind her. Only in the glass. The pale man lifted one long finger to his lips. SHHHH. She spun around. Nothing. He wasn't there. The mirror now only showed her. Just her. But something had changed. The air. The weight of it. As if whatever was outside had finally found its way in. Emma stood frozen, her skin tingling with the cold weight of unseen eyes. The mirror remained ordinary now, betraying no trace of the figure that had been there seconds ago. Just her own pale reflection, breath fogging slightly in the sudden drop of temperature. She backed away, one shaky step at a time, until her shoulder brushed the wall. Her fingers gripped the edge of the hallway table as she whispered Bowie's name, hoping for a sign that she wasn't completely alone, that her reality hadn't slipped entirely off the rails. No answer. Only silence thick enough to choke on. She turned toward the kitchen, eyes darting across every corner, every shadow. She reached the drawer near the fridge, yanked it open with a clatter, and grabbed the largest knife she could find. It felt flimsy in her grip, ridiculous against whatever force was now slithering invisibly through her home. But she clung to it like a lifeline. Bowie still hadn't reappeared. His bed was empty, his toys untouched. Emma's voice cracked when she called again, louder this time, but the only response was the unsettling creak of floorboards somewhere behind her, slow and rhythmic, like someone pacing. She turned fast, knife raised, but saw nothing. Still, the sound persisted, closer now. She couldn't tell if it was coming from the hallway, or the attic above, or something beneath the floor itself. Then, without warning, the front door let out a groan and slowly, impossibly, began to open again. Just a few inches, but enough to spill in a cold draft that made every hair on her arm stand. She had locked it. She knew she had. She had checked the bolts herself. Her breathing grew louder in her ears, ragged and wild, as she moved toward the door, knife outstretched, not to confront but to shut it. Outside, where her motion light should have been illuminating the porch, there was nothing. No glow. No trees. Just a thick, unnatural black, like the edge of a world that had stopped rendering. She slammed the door shut and locked it again. Her hands trembled violently. Then her phone buzzed. She jumped. The screen, half cracked from where she dropped it earlier, showed a single message. No name. No number. Just 5 simple words that made her throat tighten. You left the door open. Her heart stuttered. Her stomach dropped. She staggered backward, the phone slipping from her hands and clattering to the ground. The screen went black. From the darkness outside, something shifted. Not one shape. Many. Moving together. Not with the lurching unpredictability of people, but with the exacting synchronization of shadows that had been waiting for their cue. Tall, silent, watching. Just watching. She didn't need to see their faces to know who they were. The same kind of silhouette. The same stillness. Copies. Echoes. Or maybe extensions. Emma shut the curtains, double-checked every window and door, even the ones she rarely touched. And that's when she noticed the back door, usually bolted and nearly invisible behind the coat rack, was open. Not wide. Just slightly. An invitation. Her mind reeled. She hadn't used that door in weeks. It should have been locked. She stepped toward it with a sick feeling rising in her chest. The woods behind her house were dense and wild, not a place someone could navigate easily in the dark. But something had made it through. She closed and locked the back door, then leaned against it, pressing her forehead to the wood, trying to gather her thoughts. That's when she heard it. A soft voice, delicate and unmistakably childlike, echoing from the basement. Emma, come play. Her spine stiffened. The sound was clear, not muffled or distant, but as if the child was standing just at the top of the basement stairs. She didn't have children. She didn't even babysit. There was no television playing. No radio. Just that voice. Her body wanted to run, but her feet refused. The voice came again, this time more persistent. Emma, why are you hiding? Her knees buckled slightly, but she caught herself on the edge of the kitchen counter. The knife clanged onto the tile floor. She fumbled to pick it up, her breaths coming faster. The air had changed again, denser, charged, like it carried a current. She turned toward the hallway, where the basement door stood completely open. The darkness within was deep, layered, like a tunnel into something ancient. She didn't remember hearing it open. She would have heard the hinges, but now it yawned wide, expectant. She took one step closer, knife tight in her grip, and stopped. Bowie barked. Once. Sharp. Frantic. Then silence. She turned. No sign of him. She whispered his name, but there was no answer. Then she heard it again, footsteps above her. Someone was walking upstairs, right above her bedroom. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Each step landed like a drumbeat. There was no way someone had gotten inside. Every window was locked. Every door accounted for. But the sound was undeniable. She backed away from the basement and turned toward the stairs. As she moved, The overhead light flickered. Once, twice, then went out. Darkness closed in, suffocating and absolute. She reached the first step, straining to hear. Whoever was upstairs had stopped moving, but the stillness was worse. It felt intentional. She heard a whisper again, closer this time. "It's your turn." Her body seized. Then the landline rang. The old corded phone she hadn't used in years, tucked into the wall in the kitchen, suddenly screamed into the silence. She didn't remember plugging it in. It shouldn't have worked. But it rang, shrill and endless. She snatched the receiver with trembling fingers, pressing it to her ear. No dial tone. Just breathing. Long, slow. Inhale. Exhale. Then a whisper. "It's begun." Click. Silence. Her limbs turned to ice. She dropped the phone. It swung on its cord, tapping the wall with a hollow rhythm. Behind her, something creaked again, this time from the living room. She spun and caught movement in the mirror once more. The pale man. But now he wasn't silent. His mouth moved. No sound came, but his lips clearly formed one word. "Come." The mirror warped slightly around his image, like glass under pressure. She turned back to face the room. Nothing there. But she could feel him. The pressure, the weight, the impossible closeness of something that couldn't be seen but refused to stay hidden. Her grip on the knife slipped with the sweat on her palms. From upstairs came another sound, softer, more horrifying. Humming. A lullaby. Familiar but wrong. Warped like a cassette tape left in the sun. The melody looped, slowing, then repeating again. It wasn't just haunting. It was specific. Her mother used to hum it when Emma was small, barely 2. No one else would know that. No one could. Her legs moved before her brain caught up. She sprinted to the bathroom and locked the door behind her, flipping on the flashlight in the medicine cabinet. Her reflection stared back, haggard, trembling. She sat on the floor and tried to think. Her phone was dead. Her landline was haunted. The doors were compromised. Her dog was gone. The people outside weren't people. And now something upstairs was humming lullabies from her childhood. Her world was unraveling. Logic had cracked. Rules no longer applied. There was no escape route. Just this room, this flickering light, and her own reflection. Then, behind her in the mirror, she saw Bowie again. But this time, he wasn't moving. Just standing there, frozen. And behind him, behind the dog, was a figure tall enough to reach the ceiling. It raised one hand. The lights went out again. Darkness swallowed her again, total and immediate. Emma held her breath, afraid the sound alone would draw something closer. Her flashlight flickered once, and then went dead, plunging the bathroom into black. She reached out, fingers trembling, trying to find the edge of the sink or the wall, anything to orient herself. The silence pressed against her chest like a hand. She didn't know how long she sat there, seconds? Minutes? Time had stopped making sense. Somewhere beyond the door, she heard the creak of movement again. It was slower this time, not heavy like footsteps, but smoother, dragging, as if something tall and thin was gliding just beneath the ceiling. She pressed her back against the door and held the knife tight against her thigh. Every muscle locked. Her mind ran in loops. None of this was rational. None of this belonged in the real world. And yet, it was happening. She wasn't dreaming. She wasn't delusional. Something had come for her. Something old. Something that didn't care about doors or laws or sanity. Then, as if to confirm her thoughts, the doorknob turned. Slowly, deliberately, she slapped her hand over it, bracing her full weight against the door. The handle stopped moving. Silence returned. She waited, pulse hammering, but the handle didn't turn again. Still, something was out there. And it wasn't leaving. The air inside the bathroom shifted again. She could feel it, subtle but unnatural. The room wasn't just dark now. It was darker than dark, like a shadow had settled into the corners, growing thicker, heavier. Her ears popped slightly. The pressure wasn't just in her chest anymore. It was in her skull. Then, faintly, from behind the wall, she heard a voice. Not a whisper this time. Clear, crisp, male. Emma. Her name again. Not shouted, not asked, just stated. Then a pause. Open the door. She couldn't move. The voice wasn't the same one from earlier. It was deeper, slower, familiar in a way that made her teeth ache. Then came the words that shattered whatever illusion of safety she still clung to. "I'm already inside." The light bulb above her flared back on, flooding the room in a harsh yellow glow. But the mirror, it no longer showed her reflection. Instead, the glass was black. Not cracked, not fogged, just black, like it had become a window to somewhere else. Slowly, as if pulled up from deep water, a face appeared. His face. The pale man. But this time, he wasn't calm. He was smiling. Broad. Inhuman. Teeth too even, too white. His eyes gleamed with something ancient. Something that didn't belong in a human skull. He lifted one finger and traced it along the inside of the glass, and a smear of frost followed his movement. Emma stood. She couldn't stay in that room. She had to move. Had to fight. She pulled open the door, bracing for impact, but the hallway was empty. Lights dim. Shadows stretching too long across the wooden floor. She crept toward the stairs, every board under her feet groaning. The humming upstairs had stopped. Bowie was still nowhere. The house no longer felt like her own. The layout was the same, the furniture untouched, but the essence had changed. It felt hollowed out, like it had been gutted and restuffed with something pretending to be her life. She reached the base of the stairs and looked up. Nothing moved. No sounds. Still she climbed, one step at a time. Each creak felt louder than the last. Halfway up, she paused, hearing something faint. Not a footstep, not a voice. Breathing, raspy and shallow, like someone was waiting at the top. She continued upward. At the landing, she hesitated, then stepped into the hallway. Her bedroom door stood ajar, the only one open. She approached with slow, measured steps. The humming started again, but now it was behind her, at the bottom of the stairs. She turned. No one, just the song looping, cracked, distant. She darted into the bedroom and slammed the door. Locked it. The light was on. Her bed still made. Nothing obviously wrong. But the window was open. Curtains swayed gently in the still air. Outside, the trees weren't moving. Nothing was. She stepped forward, closing the window and clicking the latch. That's when she saw the footprints. On the carpet, wet, dark imprints, bare feet. They led from the closet to the window and back again. But the closet door was shut. She stared at it, knife ready, chest burning from the effort of staying silent. Then something inside the closet knocked. 3 times. Slow. Familiar. She stumbled backward, heart slamming in her chest, and a faint whisper slithered through the keyhole. "It's your turn now." The doorknob jiggled. She didn't wait. She bolted from the room and down the stairs, past the dark kitchen and toward the front door. She grabbed her keys, fumbled with the lock, yanked the door open. Outside, the driveway stretched long and black beneath the moonless sky. No shadows now. No watchers. But no sound either. Not a single cricket or leaf or gust of wind. Just her breath and the echo of her own footfalls as she ran. She didn't stop to look back. Her car sat where she left it, facing the road, keys in hand. She threw the door open, slammed it shut behind her, and jammed the key into the ignition. The car didn't start. Once. Twice. A sick mechanical stutter. Then silence. Her headlights flickered, then turned on. But they didn't shine into the trees. They reflected off a figure standing inches in front of her car. The pale man. Closer than before. He stepped slowly toward her. That same object in his hand. The one like a remote or a black stone. He placed it gently on the hood, stared into the windshield, and mouthed the words, 6 minutes. She hit the horn. It didn't make a sound. She tried the ignition again. Nothing. The man turned and walked away, melting into the dark. She sat there, frozen, trapped in the only light that still worked. Then her radio turned on, hissing static. Slowly, through the distortion, came a voice. A child's voice again. "Come home, Emma." Her name again. It was in everything now. The wind, the trees, the wires and the walls. The voice shifted mid-sentence, deepening, stretching like a corrupted file. "You were chosen." Then the dashboard lights blinked out. The radio died. She was alone again. The black object still sat on the hood, humming faintly. She stared at it, unable to move. In her rearview mirror, she saw something move in the back seat. But when she turned, nothing was there. Just her. And the cold. Then the smell hit her. Ash. Not smoke, not fire, but burned wood and old dust, like a fireplace that hadn't been cleaned in years. She opened the car door and stumbled out, not knowing what else to do. And the moment her feet touched the gravel, the black device on the hood vibrated once and split open with a click. Inside, a small slip of paper. She picked it up. 6 words, written in tiny, perfect handwriting. You let him in last time. Her mouth went dry. What did that mean? Last time. She tried to remember. Had she seen him before? Let him in. A nightmare, maybe? No, something deeper. She stared at the house. Lights back on now. A warm glow spilling from every window. As if nothing had happened. As if it was inviting her home. And then she heard Bowie bark. From inside. Loud. Clear. Hopeful. She hesitated, body torn in two. If he was alive, she had to go back. She couldn't leave him. Not after everything. But something was wrong with the light. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Or a signal. She stepped forward, inch by inch, heart in her throat. The house waited. Emma moved closer to the house, each step on the gravel sounding too loud, too real, like the world had been hollowed out and only echoes remained. The windows glowed warmly, not flickering like before, but steady, inviting. That's what terrified her most. They looked exactly the way they should, like nothing had happened, like it was just an ordinary evening again. A chill rippled down her spine. She gripped the note tighter in her hand, the 6 words burning in her palm. You let him in last time. The idea clawed at her brain, something buried too deep to fully understand but impossible to ignore. Was this her fault? Had she opened some door before? Not with her hands, but with a choice. A dream. A moment of weakness? She didn't know, but she felt it, like some part of her had broken something a long time ago. She reached the front steps. Bowie barked again, louder now, like he was just behind the door. Her hand reached for the knob, instinctively. It was cold to the touch, colder than metal should be. She hesitated, then opened it. The door creaked wide. Warmth spilled out, the smell of home, coffee, pine, the faint trace of Bowie shampoo. Everything was back. Furniture untouched, lights on, fireplace crackling, like she'd imagined it all. She stepped inside. Bowie, she called. A clatter from the kitchen. She rushed in, and there he was. Her dog. Alive. Tail wagging. Eyes bright. He ran to her, and she collapsed to the floor, wrapping her arms around him, burying her face in his fur. Relief surged through her like electricity, but beneath it unease. This was too perfect. Too clean. Her phone sat on the counter, fully charged, no cracks. The drawer she'd emptied earlier was closed and full again. The landline, which hadn't worked in years, sat silent but functional. She stood slowly, turning in place, trying to find the flaw in the illusion. And then she saw it. Her reflection in the hallway mirror was smiling. She wasn't. Her face was blank, numb, exhausted, afraid. But the reflection smiled, wide and slow. Then, in perfect synchronization, it raised a finger to its lips. SHHHH. Emma stumbled back, dragging Bowie with her, and turned to run, but the front door was gone. Not closed. Gone. A blank wall in its place. Her breathing quickened. The windows, painted black. Not covered. Painted. Every one. The warmth of the house turned stifling, heavy, like breathing through steam. She ran toward the stairs, but halfway up, the walls began to shift. The wallpaper curled, colors bleeding like ink in water. The floor beneath her softened, pulsing slightly, like it had a heartbeat. Bowie barked again, sharp, confused. Then stopped. Just stopped. She turned. He was frozen, mid-step, staring into the space behind her. And from the top of the stairs, something came crawling. Not walking. Crawling. Fast. Jittery. Unnatural. Its limbs moved like they weren't used to moving. Like a puppet with too many joints. Emma turned and ran back down, stumbling through the melting kitchen, knocking over chairs that evaporated as they hit the ground. The walls twisted, stretching long and then snapping short again. The ceiling cracked open above her, and she saw a void. Not an attic, not a roof, just darkness, endless and watching. A voice filled the house, not through the air, but inside her mind. We were always here. It wasn't the pale man's voice. It was many, layered, ancient, young, male and female, human and inhuman. You remember too soon, it said. You weren't supposed to remember. She backed into the basement door, but now it was open, yawning into a red glow. The child's voice returned from below. Come play. Her knees buckled. She turned away, but the hallway now led to a corridor that didn't exist before, one she'd never built, never seen. Long, endless, filled with doors. Each door had a number, none of them hers. And down at the end, him, the pale man, standing perfectly still. The device was gone. He no longer offered anything. He only watched. His face was different now. Not blank, not smooth. It shimmered slightly, like it couldn't settle on a shape, like it was becoming hers. She ran into the nearest room and slammed the door. The room was a perfect replica of her bedroom, but in grayscale. Her childhood journals stacked on the desk. Her mother's voice playing faintly from a music box. She clutched her head, screaming for it to stop. But the music only grew louder, now layered with whispers. They whispered her name. They whispered memories she didn't remember having. You let him in. You brought us back. You are the door. The walls of the room began to breathe. In and out. In and out. She backed into the corner, curling into herself, sobbing now, shaking. Bowie scratched at the wall, but it wasn't really him anymore. His eyes were all black. His mouth didn't move. And then the whisper came again, one last time. Right in her ear. You opened the door. We came. Everything went silent. The house stopped moving. Emma stood up slowly. The room was normal again. The light soft. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up. Full battery. A single notification. Thank you. She dropped the phone. Turned. The wall behind her now had a mirror. She stepped forward. Her reflection didn't move. It stared, then smiled. Not wide, not forced. Familiar, loving. It reached out. She didn't. And then it stepped through. A perfect replica. Another Emma. She backed away. But the other Emma stepped closer, picked up the knife from the ground, and whispered, I'll take it from here. And smiled. Emma tried to scream, but the wall swallowed her sound. The reflection turned real. The Real turned hollow. When the police arrived days later, they found no signs of struggle. The house was clean. Lights off. Doors locked. No Emma. No dog. Just a faint smell of ash and a message scrawled across the living room mirror in a substance that wouldn't come off. 6 words. She answered the knock. We stayed.